Touring Review Print Speaking to the Blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @QinReview. That is @symbol CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@QinReview.com. That is INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 29th of February 2024. From the news section. College staff across Greater Glasgow on strike today. This article was written by Ben Waddle and read by me, Corey. Staff at colleges across Greater Glasgow are set to be on strike today. Unison has announced that support staff, including librarians, IT specialists, administrators, cleaners, canteen workers and estate management staff at 21 colleges in Scotland, will walk out today in a row over pay and jobs. According to the union, workers are still waiting for a pay rise that was due in September of 2022. And their employers to guarantee any pay rises won't be at the expense of jobs. Now, Unison has said college leaders must guarantee there will be no compulsory redundancies if they want to avoid further disruption. Colleges in Greater Glasgow who are affected by the strikes are the City of Glasgow College, City Campus and Riverside, the New College Lanarkshire, Cumbernauld, Coatbridge and Motherwell, South Lanarkshire College, East Kilbride, West College Scotland, Clydebank and Greenock, Glasgow Clyde College, Langside and Cardonald, Glasgow Kelvin College, Hag Hill and Springburn. Chris Greenshields, Unison Scotland's Further Education Branch Secretary, said, "College staff up and down the country have had enough. It has been 78 weeks since staff were due their pay rise, and they are demanding that this dispute is settled free from the threat of compulsory redundancy." Unison is committed to reaching a resolution to this dispute and submitted revised proposals in December to resolve matters, which the college took over 2 months to reject. It beggars belief that employers haven't even bothered to meet the Unisons since early December. College staff want an end to this dispute and to get back to the jobs they love, supporting learners. Meanwhile, Colette Bradley, chair of Unison Scotland's Further Education Branch, said further education in Scotland is in chaos, and this dispute has now been going on for 18 months. It's time the Scottish Government stepped in to explore every avenue to reach an agreement. No one takes the decision to strike lightly. We all know how important it is for student studies not to be disrupted, but college staff had not had a pay rise for 1.5 years, which has added further stress to a dedicated workforce already suffering from the cost of living crisis. College staff are simply demanding fair pay and no compulsory redundancies. We need to avoid any further disruption for students and local communities. That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was from the news section. It was written by Ben Waddle and it was read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 29th of February 2024. From the news section. Discovery of 59 new species in Glasgow hailed as significant news. This article was written by Sandhya Suresh and read by me, Corey. A total of 59 new species of plants and insects were recorded last year in Glasgow, creating hope that urban biodiversity is increasing. A species of caddisfly and a rare yellow bird's nest plant, a parasitic plant classed as rare in Scotland, were among the new arrivals. Councillor Angus Miller, Glasgow convener for climate, said, "The discovery of 59 new species in the city and River Clyde catchment area is really exciting and significant news. It proves that environmental work being done by the council in the city is assisting nature's recovery and attract a wider array of insects and other wildlife. Greening up the city also helps people by reducing the impact of global warming. Trees help reduce air pollution and flooding while also providing shade in hotter summers. Being surrounded by nature is good for our physical and mental well-being, and it is also visually appealing. The new discoveries reflect the Glasgow City Council's successful environmental initiatives, such as designating more local nature reserves, which cover 82 hectares of land, planting wildflowers, trees, and managing grassland better for pollinators and other insects. The Council declared a climate and ecological emergency in May of 2019 and implemented plans focused on engaging the city's biodiversity. Under these plans, staff planted 25,000 daffodils, 22,260 bulbs and 16,500 wildflower plugs last year in locations including the Central Reservation on Great Western Road. Other new arrivals include the Orach moth, haw goblet fungi, new shiny green Odamera lurida beetle, and the Crypachia blatia spider. That's spelt Cryptaaceaea, then Blattea. I do apologise if I've pronounced that incorrectly. The orchid moth has only been recorded to be seen in the Hamilton Hill Clay Pits Local Nature Reserve in Scotland. The council is planting 18 million trees and hedges across Glasgow City region to create new woodland and wildlife habitats by 2030. Glasgow museums are encouraging people to send in records of plants and animals they see in the city, as it helps experts understand the health of wildlife in Glasgow. The council is also using its green spaces to tackle loneliness and social isolation by offering people volunteering opportunities to meet like-minded people and get involved with nature restoration. To find out more, search Glasgow Tree Plan or storymaps.arcgis.com/stories. That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was from the news section. It was written by Sandhya Suresh and it was read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 29th of February 2024. From the news section. Global firm take over office in Glasgow city centre. An article written by Sandhya Suresh and read by me, Corey. A global pensions administrator is set to open a new office in Glasgow next month, its second Scottish office. Aptia has secured a 5-year lease for its new office at 145 St Vincent Street in the city centre. The new office is due to open in the first quarter of 2024, following fit-out completion, and will provide a hybrid workspace for 65 employees. Mike Methley, and Chief Administration Officer of Aptia, said, "Glasgow is an extremely important market for us, and we wanted an office that would reflect both our ambition for growth and our core values of being a specialist, responsive and thoughtful company. 145 St Vincent Street provides us with exactly that, and we are very excited about taking occupation in the very near future." The opening of the Glasgow office follows the company's recent announcement that they had secured space at Verdant House in South Gyle Business Park in Edinburgh. Launched on January 1st this year, Aptia is the largest private sector pension administrator in the UK, and was formed as part of an acquisition of the US Health and Benefits Administration and UK Pension Administration business of Mercer. More than 7 million people across 1,100 companies have had their pensions and benefits administered by Aptia. The acquisition in Glasgow was represented by Global Real Estate Advisors, CBRE. Martin Spears, Associate Director at CBRE, said, "As a global business, it was important for Aptia to have a major presence in Scotland's two largest cities, and we are delighted to assist them in securing their new Glasgow office." The acquisition of the top floor suite at 145 St Vincent Street will ensure Aptia offer their staff a top-class working environment and an office that benefits for some of the best views across the city, allowing them to attract and retain the best talent. 145 St Vincent Street is located in Glasgow's central business district, within walking distance of both Glasgow Central and Queen Street railway stations. Chris Ross of landlord Robert Jones Holdings said, "We are thrilled that Aptia chose 145 St Vincent Street for their new Glasgow office, and we are convinced that the top floor of the building shall serve as an absolutely brilliant headquarters for their staff based in the west of Scotland." That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was from the news section. It was written by Sandhya Suresh, and it was read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times, on Thursday the 29th of February 2024. From the news section. Hamza Yusuf, Emma Cadwell public inquiry being explored. This article was written by Stuart Patterson and is being read by me, Corey. A judge-led public inquiry into the Emma Cadwell murder inquiry is being explored, the First Minister has said. Hamza Yusuf said it is firmly on the table to look at the systematic failings that allowed Ian Packer to be free to rape several women and murder Emma Cadwell. Following the guilty verdict and sentencing on Ian Packer for Emma's murder, her mother, Margaret, called for a public inquiry, after it was known Packer was a suspect but not charged until years later, and then only after investigations by the Sunday Mail and BBC Scotland. Douglas Ross, Scottish Conservative leader, asked Hamza Yusuf at First Minister's questions if he would call an inquiry. Ross said, "Evidence was deliberately ignored or suppressed," and added Emma's family were betrayed. He added, "Why did it take so long to charge Ian Packer, and why was he allowed to be free to attack multiple women?" The First Minister said, "For the many women who have been failed by the justice system, it's important to get the answers to the questions they have." He said he would meet with Margaret Cadwell urgently, adding, "Justice was far too late." He said, "There were some serious failings. Of that there is no doubt." Yusuf added, I was wanting to hear from Margaret Caldwell and examine the case in more detail. He said a judge-led inquiry is something we are exploring. Anis Sarwar, Scottish Labour leader, said there were many troubling issues, misogyny and prejudice. He said there were institutions fighting for their reputation rather than seeking to find the truth, adding journalists have investigated leads the police had ignored. Ian Packer was jailed for life for the murder of Emma Cadwell in 2005. He was also convicted of raping 11 women, among 32 of other charges, following a 6-week trial at the High Court in Glasgow. That article was from the news section. It was written by Stuart Patterson and it was read by me, Corey.
From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 1st of March, from the news section, Safe School Route Fury, report by Morgan Carmichael. Families have been left feeling even worse after walking to a supposed safe route to school. We previously reported that South Lanarkshire Council have put forward a proposal that will scrap free bus travel for pupils who live 3 or more miles from their catchment school. The move means that secondary students may have to walk up to 6 miles a day. Families in the area took part in a protest where they walked a safe route put forward by SLC in 2015 when the council first tried to implement the same changes. Shireen Moore, spokesperson for the Calderside Academy School Transport Group and parent of 2 affected pupils, explained the group had to walk the 2015 route as they claim SLC have not yet given a new one. Shireen said, "We walked along a very busy and long road, B7012, which is 2 very unsafe junctions to cross and includes going up to the underpass and up some steep and slippery stairs. The 2 junctions are particularly hazardous due to the speed and volume of traffic, as well as traffic coming from multiple directions. In winter, with the black school uniform, we are incredibly concerned that children could be knocked down. During the walk, there was also glass, litter, excrement and more along the route and in the underpass. The footpaths are all in extremely poor condition, with several people tripping at times along the route, and there are areas where lighting is poor. Having walked the potential routes, we feel even worse." Shireen said some parents who have health problems are increasingly concerned about how they will get their children to school, deeming the proposal impossible. She said, "We have been contacted by parents with fibromyalgia, asthma and other health issues who simply won't be able to accompany their children to school. This is impossible to do on a daily basis." Shireen said families are beginning to feel powerless. She said, "We feel even worse as we simply cannot see how on earth pupils and parents will get their children to school safely day after day. These cuts will have an appalling negative impact on the children across SLC if their transport is removed. We know that SLC have many difficult decisions to make, but no amount of potential savings should cloud good judgment and common sense. Our children's safety is paramount." Carol Mackenzie, Executive Director of Education, said, "There has never been a commitment from the Council to provide individual parents/carers with information specific to them during the consultation period. We are confident, however, that this does not prevent anyone who wants to comment on the proposals from doing so. In fact, we have received thousands of responses to date from parents/carers, despite them not having confirmation of distance measurements or an assessment of any road safety concerns raised by them." The Council also confirmed that the proposed implementation will not take effect until late 2025 and the consultation will remain open until March 15th. And that report was by Morgan Carmichael. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 1st of March, news. Day of Reflection event to be held. This article is unattributed. Bereaved families are invited to attend a special event at Pollock Park. To mark Marie Curie's Day of Reflection on Sunday, March the 3rd, Glaswegians will be gathered to remember those who died during the pandemic and to show support. Attendees will come together at Pollock Park at the I Remember monuments at 11:45am for a minute of silence, poetry readings and a Piper performance. Matthew Reid, Chief Executive of Marie Curie, said, "With her 4th day of reflection just days away, Marie Curie is urging the nation to take a moment to remember all the people who died during the pandemic and to show support for those who are bereaved. New data has confirmed what we are seeing on the ground. The pandemic endured in the minds of people who were bereaved, and huge swathes of the public are still grieving. Please show your support for them this Sunday, and if you need help with your grief, know that Marie Curie is here for you and ready to talk." And that article was unattributed. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 1st of March, from the news section, Emma case inquiry being explored. Report by Stuart Patterson. A judge-led public inquiry into the Emma Caldwell murder probe is being explored, the First Minister has said. Humza Yousaf said it is firmly on the table to look at the systemic failings that allowed Ian Packer to be free to rape several women and murder Emma Caldwell. Following the guilty verdict and sentencing on Ian Packer for Emma's murder, her mother, Margaret, called for a public inquiry after it was known Packer was a suspect but was not charged until years later, and then only after investigations by the Sunday Mail and BBC Scotland. Douglas Ross, Scottish Conservative leader, asked Hunter Yousaf at First Minister's Questions yesterday if he would call in an inquiry. Ross said, "Evidence was deliberately ignored or suppressed," and added Emma's family were betrayed. He added, "Why did it take so long to charge Ian Packer, and why was he allowed to be free to attack multiple women?" The First Minister said, "For the many women who have been failed by the justice system, it's important they get the answers to the questions they have." He said would meet with Margaret Caldwell urgently, adding, "Justice was far too late." He said, "There were some serious failings, of that there is no doubt." Yousaf added, "I was wanting to hear from Margaret Caldwell and examine the case in more detail." He said, "A judge-led inquiry is something we are exploring." Anas Sarwar, Scottish Labour leader, said there were many troubling issues, misogyny and prejudice. He said there were institutions fighting for their reputation rather than seeking to find the truth, adding, "Journalists have investigated leads the police had ignored." Ian Packer was jailed for life for the murder of Emma Caldwell in 2005. He was also convicted of raping 11 women, among 32 of other charges, following a 6-week trial at the High Court in Glasgow. And that report was by Stuart Patterson and read by me, Ian. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 1st of March, from the news section, Journalist champions new generation of local news. Report by Esther Tarnay. A Glasgow journalist has launched a project championing the new generation of local news. Marissa McWhirter, 29, formerly of the Glasgow Times, recently stepped into her new role as editor of the Glasgow Wrap. It is a weekly newsletter expertly curating the important headlines of the day in an easy-to-read format. She said, "I like to think of it as a daily newspaper for a new generation. It's another way to get local news. It adds to how we interact with what is happening around us in the city. In the cluttered digital environment, these stories can get lost, but there are issues which have a huge impact on our lives. Also, local news has lots of silver linings, as opposed to the persistent negative headlines from the national press that can lead to news burnout. When you look inwards and focus on your community, it can be very uplifting. Dropping into subscribers' inbox every morning, the Wrap is free, contains no advertisements, and takes less than 5 minutes to read." She added, "The digital realm of local news can be stressful to navigate. This newsletter presents stories in a way that is easily digestible, highlighting the most important bits with the option to read more. It is inspired by the Edinburgh Minute newsletter by Michael McLeod, who has been a huge part of getting the Wrap off the ground." Marissa stressed the importance of anti-clickbait journalism, especially when it comes to crucial issues such as politics. She said, "We're going into an election year, and being in the know about what is happening around you, with your local councillors and within Glasgow City Council, makes you a more informed voter, which is key for democracy. Beyond sharing information, the RAP seeks to build an online community and reform the way people interact with the news cycle. This is important to Marissa, a dedicated reporter who has been at the core of the city's current affairs for over 2 years. She focused on issues such as the LEZ rollout, the closure of Turning Point 218 due to cuts, and the impact of the cost of living crisis on the hospitality sector. She said, "I learned so much during my time at the Glasgow Times. The city is not without its problems, but as a journalist, you also see the people working really hard and giving their time to make it a better place. And there are so many incredible journalists reporting tirelessly in Glasgow. I hope to make it easier for people to connect with these stories and those who tell them." You can subscribe to the Glasgow Rap via theglasgowrap.substack.com. That's theglasgowrap.substack.com. And that report was by Esther Tarnay. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 1st of March, from the news section. Man spiked women's drinks. Report by Connor Gordon. A man crushed drugs into 2 women's drinks at his home before committing sex attacks on them. Monid Ahmad, 54, preyed on the women at the property in Glasgow's Gorbals in 2016 and 2021. Ahmad took the pair home under false pretences before giving them alcohol laced with a cocktail of drugs. The married dad removed the clothing of both of his victims while they were in a state of incapacity. The 2 victims were later found to have drugs such as MDMA in their systems. Ahmad earlier targeted another woman in 2015, but she was able to escape after she called police from his bathroom. Ahmad was found guilty at Glasgow Sheriff Court to 2 charges of assault. He was also convicted of behaving in a threatening or abusive manner. The court heard Ahmad initially met the first woman aged 22 on a night out and took her home in May 2015. Court papers state Ahmad attempted to coerce her into taking drugs and alcohol. Ahmad touched her in the body, shouted, swore and acted in an aggressive manner towards her. Ahmad claimed in his evidence that the woman was talking incoherently and threatened to get someone to sort him out. Ahmad stated that the woman went into the downstairs toilet. He claimed he told her she could leave and he would wait upstairs for her to go. He claimed that he banged down as a way to inform her that it was not nearby. Ahmad stated he waited 30 minutes before he went back downstairs as he believed she had left. However, the police were at the front door and the woman was found still inside the property. Prosecutor Sean Docherty put it to Ahmad that his version of events was nonsense and the woman was scared due to prior conduct. He said, "She contacted the police and it was the police who let her out after seeing her in the bathroom distressed and shaken." Ahmad also admitted telling police officers at the time he did not know that the woman was in the bathroom. Ahmad went on to meet 2 women who invited back to his home for a party in July 2016. One of the women, aged 23, left his home while another remained. Ahmad claimed the pair sat up chatting and watched music videos. He stated that the woman later asked to go for a shower and he left her a t-shirt to change into. Ahmad claimed he did not see the woman again until the next day when he made her tea and toast. The charge says Ahmad administered several controlled substances to her against her will, then sexually assaulted her by removing her clothing while she was in a state of incapacity. Mr. Docherty asked Ahmad why the woman was crying in distress at her friend's work the next day. He replied, "I can't really answer that." Mr. Docherty stated that MDMA, PMMA, methamphetamine and cannabis were found in her system. Ahmad said, "I don't know how you would get all of that into a drink." Mr. Docherty said, "I suggest you crushed it up and mixed it with the vodka and cola and shortly after she blacked out. You took her upstairs and removed her clothes." Ahmad replied, "No." The hearing was then told that Ahmad visited a Glasgow University chess club in October 2021. It is there that Ahmad met the 3rd woman aged 22, while Ahmad was 52. Ahmad took the woman home later that night. Ahmad claimed the woman was looking for part-time work and even offered to babysit for him. He stated the woman smoked a joint on his property and her behaviour changed towards him. The charge says Ahmad administered several controlled substances against her will and sexually assaulted her by removing her tights while she was in a state of incapacity. Ahmad denied spiking the woman's drink and claimed she spilled a glass of wine on herself. He stated the woman removed her own tights in the bathroom. Ahmad also claimed the woman suggested that she had taken drugs up her nose earlier that night. The woman called her friend, who also spoke to Ahmad. He claimed to have asked her friend for the address to send her away in a taxi. The hearing was told MDMA and cocaine were found in the woman's system. Mr. Doherty asked if Ahmad crushed up these drugs and put them in her drink without her knowing, which he denied. The fiscal added, "This was your modus operandi. This is your way of operating. These are not just separate charges. You meet people much younger than you and you invite them under false pretences. Once there, you give the alcohol laced with drugs." Sentence was deferred pending background reports until next month by Sheriff Paul Reed, who continued Ahmed's bail. He said, "Don't read anything into receiving bail. You have been convicted of extremely serious offences. While no decision has been made, you should expect to receive a substantial custodial sentence." Ahmad is now subject to notification requirements of the Sex Offenders Register. That report was by Connor Gordon. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 1st of March, news. Man who crashed into police car was distracted by music. This article is unattributed. A man caught speeding who crashed into a police car claimed he was distracted by loud music. Kevin Cadder, 20, struck the vehicle and injured 2 officers inside Glasgow's Castle Milk on March the 1st, 2022. The City Sheriff Court heard that officers' attention was drawn to Cadder as he was travelling above the 30 mph limit. Constables Gary Bull and Rory Wiley, who wore reflective vests, stood on the road and gestured for him to stop. Cadder, of the city's Queen's Park, failed to do so and carried out a manoeuvre to pass the officers. He was then followed, but sight was momentarily lost in him. Prosecutor Lauren Aitchison said, "They traced him again on Castlemilk Crescent. He emerged from the junction while driving at speed and collided with the police vehicle. Airbags were deployed and both vehicles were stated to have been damaged. Cadder was then arrested. Court papers state that PC Bull and Constable Robbie Wilkie were injured as a result of the collision. The first offender pleaded guilty to dangerous driving in January. Stephen Bentley, defending, told the sentencing he panicked when this happened. He was distracted when in the car and his friends played loud music. He regrets what's happened. My client is remorseful for his actions on this occasion as the situation escalated very quickly in the manner which it did." Sheriff Alan Mackay fined Cadder £940 and disqualified him from driving for 18 months. The sheriff said, "I have difficulty believing that you panicked. I have difficulty believing you were affected by music, and I had difficulty believing your friends distracted you. I have no real reason why you did what you did. There will be a more likely reason. Your conduct was reprehensible. Driving away from police and then colliding with another car is simply unacceptable." And that article was unattributed. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 1st of March, from the news section, Perv avoids jail over sex act on pal. Report by Connor Gordon. A pervert who recorded himself performing a sex act on his friend while she slept has avoided jail. David Ellingham, 28, carried out the sick deed on the woman at a property in Glasgow's Govan between May 2021 and April 2022. The City Sheriff Court heard yesterday that Ellingham had initially been babysitting for the woman who went on a night out. The woman returned in the early hours of the morning and fell asleep next to Ellingham. She woke up a few hours later and noticed that her feet were wet. Ellingham of Kilsyth was also awake at this time. Prosecutor Ryan Watson said, she asked why her feet were wet and Ellingham said that he spilled juice on the bed. She noticed that the bed was dry. However, Ellingham said that the sheets must have dried in. The woman also noticed that Ellingham's torch on his phone was on. Ellingham then left the room, which the woman thought was suspicious. She asked what he was doing, which made Ellingham become defensive, but she did not pursue it further. The pair were together in April 2022, when the woman asked to borrow Ellingham's phone to play a game on it. Ellingham fell asleep, and the woman then accessed his phone's photo gallery. Mr. Watson said, she noticed pictures of feet and thereafter found a video of Ellingham performing a sex act on her which she did not consent to. The woman recorded the video on her own phone before deleting the original from Ellingham's. She contacted a friend to pick her up before she contacted the police. Ellingham was later arrested when he told officers, I didn't have any images on my phone. Ellingham pleaded guilty in January to sexually assaulting the woman. Sheriff Barry Divers tagged Ellingham for 216 days, keeping him indoors between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. He was also put under supervision for 12 months and placed on the sex offenders register for 5 years. And that report was by Connor Gordon.
Glasgow Times News on Monday the 4th of March. Glasgow motorist who killed a woman as she crossed the road had no idea he'd hit someone. An article written by Grant McCabe. A driver who killed a woman as she crossed the road did not know he had hit someone. Ian Fletcher ploughed into Rachel McLaren, sending her flying over a roadside safety barrier on November the 27th, 2021. The 51-year-old, who should have had a clear sight of Miss McLaren, had been going at 58 miles an hour in a 30 mile an hour zone on Balmoor Road in Glasgow's Milton area. Mr. Fletcher is now behind bars after he pleaded guilty to causing the death of the 33-year-old by dangerous driving. He'll be sentenced next month. The fatal collision occurred as Miss McLaren, who lived nearby, had been heading to a local shop. Mr. Fletcher was behind the wheel of his Ford Focus at the time. CCTV played at the High Court in Glasgow showed Miss McLaren crossing the road and being hit by the car, sending her flying through the air. Prosecutor James Irvin said the car did not brake until after the collision, coming to a stop 82 metres away. Witnesses immediately raced to help Miss McLaren. But Mr. Irvin described her injuries as being so serious that she never recovered from being hit. She is survived by her parents, her brother and her partner. The court heard Mr. Fletcher of the city's Maryhill admitted to police that he had been driving that night. There was no trace that he had taken drink or drugs, but it emerged he had a clear sight of Miss McLaren for 230 metres as she crossed the road. Ian Duguid, defending, said that Mr. Fletcher, who is father to 2 children and who had no previous driving offences, was remorseful for what he called a shocking incident. The King's Counsel added he stopped his car and got out. He had not realised at the time that he had struck a person. He came to find people attending to Rachel McLaren on the pavement. Mr. Duguid said despite it being dark that night, it was difficult to imagine how he could not have seen Miss McLaren. Lady Stacey deferred sentencing for reports. Mr. Fletcher had been on bail, but she remanded him in custody. He was also banned from the road. The judge said, "What happened that day was a tragedy. Nothing I can say or you can say can take away the grief Miss McLaren's family will continue to feel." An article written by Grant McCabe. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 4th of March. Glasgow taxi drivers launch a podcast. An article written by Morgan Carmichael.
Welcome to Talking Taxis, the new Glasgow taxi cast, which takes an unprecedented peek beneath the bonnet of one of our great city's most iconic trades.
Glasgow taxi drivers have just launched a new podcast. Talking Taxis, hosted by Glasgow Taxis Limited, is looking to discuss the big issues facing the trade and the many stories and characters within it. The podcast will run for an initial first season of 6 episodes, covering topics such as recruitment, cash versus card, overcharging, and the annual children's trip to Troon. In the first episode, which is now live, drivers David Farrell, John Lundy and Dougie McPherson, who is also the chairman of Glasgow Taxis Limited, give their honest perspectives on the low emission zone, the process behind it and what lies ahead. Dougie said, Talking Taxis has been introduced at a time when the taxi trade in Glasgow is facing challenges unlike ever before. Drivers and the trade in general can often feel their voices aren't heard, so we took it upon ourselves to find a new way to get our message out there and, when it comes to the important issues, to make sure we don't miss. The pandemic, a cost of living crisis and wider economic pressures would have been plenty to deal with at any given time, but throw into the mix the low emission zone requirements and deadlines and it's the most imperfect storm that just won't go away. That's why we made the low emission zone the topic for our first episode, and we hope the city is listening. Glasgow taxi drivers have never been short of opinions. We all also have a genuine love for the city we operate in. The drivers I know care deeply for Glasgow and want the best for it. We hope that comes across in Talking Taxis, and we hope our voices can be added to the conversations required to help Glasgow punch above its weight again and soon. Talking Taxis Episode 1 is available to listen wherever you find your podcasts. Search for Talking Taxis. An article written by Morgan Carmichael. Glasgow Times on Monday the 4th of March. Lifestyle. Blind comedian to debut at Glasgow International Comedy Festival. An article written by Sandhya Suresh. A blind comedian takes to the stage this month at Glasgow's International Comedy Festival for his first solo show. Neil Skeen, who's 57, was born with glaucoma and despite having some useful vision in his early years, he has been blind for all of his adult life. His show, The Belligerency of Blindness, will be held at Blackfriars of Bell Street at 6 p.m. on March the 15th. Mr. Skeen said, I think most people with a disability suffer from pent-up frustrations. This show gives me an opportunity to vent them publicly, something I've been doing in private with family and friends, which has seen me labelled as belligerent. In the show, I make endless excuses as to why this label is unjustified, but audience members can make their own mind up. For me, performing without sight can be an advantage. I really focus on the material and don't try to pre-read the audience. The comedian uses his life's journey and personal experiences to bring substance to his performance. He said, I'm very grateful for all the support I've received over the years from organisations like RNIB Scotland, who have provided me with so many practical tips and support for everyday living. It's not intrusive support, but they're there for when you need it, and a vital service. For people new to sight loss, it can be a very scary place, but in time and with perseverance, it is navigable. He advised those who recently lost their sight to continue to be yourself. You really are still you, just with less vision. Tickets are available for those over 18 years of age and can be purchased from the Glasgow International Comedy Festival's website. An article written by Sandhya Suresh. Glasgow Times on Monday the 4th of March. Lifestyle. Lord of the Rings star receives an award at the Glasgow Film Festival. An article written by Morgan Carmichael. A Lord of the Rings star received a prestigious award at the Glasgow Film Festival this weekend. Viggo Mortensen, who is best known for his role as Aragorn in the fantasy films, was honoured with the festival's inaugural Cinema City Honorary Award following the UK premiere of his new film The Dead Don't Hurt, a moving romantic western set in the 1860s. The movie sees Mr. Mortensen play a Danish immigrant who becomes involved with the fiercely independent Vivienne Lecoudi, played by Vicky Krieps. The actor was presented with the award at an In Conversation event, which was sold out, where he talked about his 5-decade-long Hollywood career as an actor and a director. Mr. Mortensen was presented with the award by Glasgow Film Festival director Alison Gardner, who said, "This year we mark significant milestones. 85 years since the Cosmo Cinema opened its doors, transforming into the Glasgow Film Theatre 50 years ago, and now the 20th edition of our award-winning Glasgow Film Festival. These anniversaries are not mere numbers, they are chapters of our enduring legacy, a testament to our role as the heartbeat of Scotland's cinematic landscape and our commitment to cinema for all. The Glasgow Film Theatre has been a formative cultural venue for generations of Scotland's filmmakers, artists and musicians. Viggo Mortensen's outstanding contribution to cinema and his deep passion for art and creativity makes him the perfect first recipient of our new honorary award. We are honoured to welcome him to Glasgow and for him to accept this award from the whole team here at Glasgow Film. Other guests at the festival included UK stage and screen star Maxine Peake at the UK premiere of her new film Woken, and Canadian star of The Vampire Diaries Sarah Canning at the world premiere of her new romantic drama The Burning Season. The festival will run until March the 10th. An article written by Morgan Carmichael. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 4th of March. Thousands of Scots missed council tax payments in 2023. An article written by Morgan Carmichael. Over 270,000 people in Scotland missed a council tax payment in 2023, analysis by Citizens Advice Scotland suggests. The charity commissioned YouGov to conduct an analysis which suggests that 276,186 people in Scotland had missed a council tax payment at least once from December 2022. Miles Fitt, Citizens Advice Scotland financial health spokesperson, said, "The sheer scale of people who have missed a council tax payment last year is alarming. That's 270,000 people receiving a bill for payment for the full year of council tax because of that missed payment. 270,000 people potentially facing a bank arrestment if payment can't be made. 270,000 people potentially in need of advice, as council tax debt is nearly always connected to other debts. The cost of living crisis is undoubtedly a key factor in this. People are prioritising essential costs like heating, food and shelter, and in some cases that means skipping or not being able to pay their monthly council tax bill. People don't see immediate tangible consequences of not paying their council tax. The bins still get emptied and the streetlights still stay on, in the way that they do if food cannot be bought or if energy bills are left unpaid. But council tax should be regarded as a priority bill simply because the debt collection process is quicker and harsher than commercial debt like credit cards, such as arresting bank accounts, which can include benefit payments. As council tax bills land on doorsteps in the coming weeks for the next financial year, we urge people to factor in the consequences of not paying the council tax as they determine their spending priorities. Citizens Advice Scotland is running the Stressed About Debt campaign, encouraging people who are worried about money and debt to seek advice from the Citizens Advice Network. An article written by Morgan Carmichael. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 4th of March. Thug jailed for strangling his pregnant partner in an attack. An article written by Vic Roderick. A persistent violent offender with a long history of previous convictions has been jailed for 30 months for strangling his pregnant partner. Daniel McCrudden, originally from Paisley, admitted seizing the woman by the hair and repeatedly punching her on the head before pulling her to the ground. The thug branded a danger to the public by a sheriff, then grabbed her by the throat, restricting her breathing in a terrifying episode of domestic abuse. A court was told that the woman was injured in the vicious attack at an address in West Lothian on May the 26th last year. Mr McCrudden, who's 23 and now in Low Moss Prison, East Dunbartonshire, was originally charged on the indictment with attacking to the danger of life, but the Crown accepted his guilty plea to a lesser charge of assault to injury. The accused also admitted assaulting Thomas Crosby during the same incident by repeatedly punching him on the body. Mr McCrudden, who was subject to a total of 7 bail orders from courts in Paisley and Falkirk at the time of the offences, further admitted 3 counts of breaching home curfews by being in the company of his former partner on 1 occasion and twice failing to stay inside his bail address in Armadale. He also appeared for sentence for breaching court bail orders by repeatedly contacting his partner from Addywell and Lomos prisons between September the 3rd and October the 1st last year. However, his not guilty plea to attempting to pervert the course of justice by instructing her not to tell social workers about him subjecting her to domestic abuse was accepted by the Crown. Passing sentence, Sheriff Peter Hammond told Mr McCrudden, "Clearly, custodial sentences have done nothing to deter you from a lifetime of offending. There are alternatives to custody, but I'm satisfied that you are a persistent violent offender who presents a danger to the public and to domestic partners." He went on, "As your solicitor has told me, adversity in your life has undoubtedly contributed to where you are today." The Sheriff said he took into account Mr McCrudden's adverse life experiences, the stage at which he had pled guilty, and the length of time he had spent in custody on remand. He concluded, "The only appropriate disposal is a custodial one." He backdated the prison sentence to the 29th of June last year, when Mr McCrudden was remanded in custody, and imposed a non-harassment order banning him from approaching or contacting the woman in any way for 3 years. He was caged for 16 months in 2019, when he was aged just 16, for knifing a man in the neck. Paisley Sheriff Court was told at the time that he taunted his victim, Thomas Riach, by saying he was lucky the switchblade he used hadn't locked and plunged deeper into his neck. He was sentenced at the same time for attacking police who had taken him to hospital, telling them he hoped their daughters got cancer and threatening to find out where their families lived. Mr McCrudden was sentenced to a further 15 months detention in 2021 after he was convicted of scarring Lewis Beaton for life by smashing a bottle onto the back of his head after chasing him down the street in Paisley. An article written by Vic Roderick. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 4th of March. Football violence slammed by police. An article written by Ben Waddell. A detective has slammed the senseless violence tied to football and religious animosity after 2 Rangers fans brutally attacked a Celtic supporter in Glasgow. Jordan James Adam, who's 27, and Richard Love, who's 26, pounced on the victim while they were on a train returning home from an Old Firm match on February the 2nd, 2022. We previously reported that the pair both pleaded guilty to the serious assault of the man, as well as to threatening and abusive behaviour at Glasgow Sheriff Court on Tuesday the 30th of January. They were given 3 years and 9 months in prison, as well as a 7-year football banning order. In the aftermath of the sentencing, British Transport Police Investigating Officer Detective Constable Thomas Gallagher has spoken out against the utterly unacceptable actions carried out on that day. He said, "The sentence handed out underscores that violence tied to football and religious animosity is utterly unacceptable. We hold a firm stance against such behaviour in any setting, and I hope that the result in this case demonstrates that senseless violence will not be tolerated." The court heard that before the horrific ordeal, Mr Adam and Mr Love boarded a train at Glasgow Queen Street. The victim, a man in his 40s, then got on the same train at Shettleston. He sat behind them, and Mr Adam and Mr Love erupted into football chants, which turned abusive, and a verbal altercation began. Shortly afterwards, Mr Adam lunged towards the victim and attacked him before Mr Love punched him in the head and upper body. Other passengers then had to intervene to physically remove the violent pair from the victim. After that, the man moved into the next carriage. He left the train at Easterhouse, but Mr Love followed him and knocked him to the ground. He then punched him repeatedly as he lay helplessly on the ground before Mr Adam ran over, stamping on the victim's head and knocking him unconscious. The Celtic fan was then rushed to hospital with horrific injuries. A CT scan showed he had a bleed on the brain as well as bruising to the right side of his brain, with the injuries requiring long-term specialist input and affecting their ability to drive. At the hearing at Glasgow Sheriff Court, Sheriff Tom Hughes told them, "This is an appalling set of circumstances arising from a football match. I hope the message is clear to other people that find themselves in a similar position to you, that the courts will not tolerate mindless violence." An article written by Ben Waddell.
From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 5th of March, from the news section, my documentary is a homage to friendship. Articles in exclusive by Nicole Mitchell. When the idea of a documentary was first suggested to Janie Godley, she thought it was going to be something she could keep at home, like a wedding video. But the world premiere of the engaging and insightful film, which interviews stories from Janie's life with footage from her Not Dead Yet tour in the wake of her terminal cancer diagnosis, will be the closing event at this year's Glasgow Film Festival. "I'm absolutely gobsmacked it will be closing the gala," Janie says. "I kept asking, are you sure? It's just a wee film about a woman that talks a lot of S*********. I didn't expect it to be on cinemas or on the telly or anything. I thought I was just going to make a film and then I would keep it like a wedding video." The idea for the feature, which was directed by John Archer, came from Janie's daughter Ashley's story at the time when Janie thought the Not Dead Yet tour could be our final live tour. Ashley decided if it was going to be the last big hurrah, then we should document it, she explained. "I spoke to my agent, and he got in touch with John Archer and it all came together." She adds, "I wanted there to be some sort of testimony to me, some sort of way to round up this whole life I've lived. As someone who has been very open about her life throughout her career, Janie didn't find it hard to open up on camera and says the experience of filming the documentary was nothing. It was weird just me and Shirley talking and a camera being there," she says. "That was all it was. It was just an extra person in the room and they were so unobtrusive. There was no direction. John didn't tell us what to talk about. John didn't tell us how to approach it. John didn't tell us what to wear. John didn't tell us expletives deleted, anything." She continues, "I've always been okay about being very open about my life. I think talking about child abuse was important. I thought talking about domestic abuse with my mammy was important. I thought speaking about cancer was important. I think it's important to speak out about experiences you have that other people might be able to share with you." Janie loved the film when she watched it, but found it an emotional experience. "I've seen it and I loved it," she says. "I loved watching me back at the pub and thinking people will enjoy that part of it. If they read my autobiography, they can see the images of it. It was definitely emotional watching it. It's me, and I don't know how long I've got left to live. And watching her come through all that madness and still be her, I kind of detached myself from it." Janie says she initially thought about cancelling the 2023 Not Dead Yet tour, but was told by comedian Jimmy Carr to go expletive deleted, do the tour. She says it was brilliant and energising getting back out on stage and praised her fans for the support they've shown her. "The absolute outpouring of love is never to be underestimated," Janie says. "They came out in their thousands to see me and cheer me on. That is just amazing." So, what does Janie hope people will take away from the film? "I hope to see the friendship I have with my pals," she says. "I think it's a testimony and an homage to friendship. I think they're going to see somebody who's got good pals." Following the premiere of Janie on Sunday, the film will be released in cinemas on March the 15th, with Janie also visiting cinemas across Scotland for special screenings, where she'll do a live stand-up set after the film. This will include an event at Glasgow Film Theatre on March 23rd. And that article was an exclusive by Nicole Mitchell. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 5th of March, From the news section, Celtic fan punched cop at title party. This article is unattributed. A teenage Celtic fan punched a police officer at the club's title party. Christopher McLeod, 19, pounced on Constable Gary Key outside Parkhead on May the 27th, 2023. Officers had attended the area to monitor public safety as thousands descended to celebrate the Hoops winning the Scottish Premiership title. McLeod was noted to be drunk, and officers had reason to place him into a police vehicle. Prosecutor Caitlin O'Hare told Glasgow Sheriff Court, "Without reason, McLeod punched PC Key to the face. As a result, he was restrained on the floor of the vehicle in handcuffs." McLeod, of Motherwell, North Lanarkshire, pleaded guilty to assaulting PC Key. Haroon Malik, defending, told Monday's sentencing, "There was a prevailing attitude at that time which was 'we never stop', but my client knows that he should have. He understands that it is likely he would have been sent to Polmont. He relays his sincere apologies. The Crown did not seek a football banning order." Sheriff Mark Maguire stated that he followed the under-25 young person sentencing guidelines, which focuses on rehabilitation. He ordered McLeod to do 135 hours of unpaid work and placed him under supervision for 12 months. McLeod will also undertake alcohol counselling. The sheriff said, "This was a nasty incident. If you engage in conduct like this again, you will be sent to Polmont. If you breach this order, your rehabilitation becomes less of a priority." And that article was unattributed. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 5th of March, from the news section, charity hailed for helping vulnerable pregnant women. This article is unattributed. A Glasgow charity has been honoured with the 2024 GSK Impact Award for its support for vulnerable pregnant women. Ama Birth Companions, which assists women, some seeking asylum and refugees, in achieving healthy pregnancies and positive birthing experiences, was selected from more than 500 UK charities. The award includes £40,000 in unrestricted funding and expert support and leadership development by the King's Fund. Marie Adam, Chief Executive Officer of Ama Birth Companions, said, "We are deeply honoured to receive this prestigious award. This recognition fuels our dedication to enhancing maternal well-being and reinforces the significance of our efforts to tackle systematic disparities in perinatal care." Established in 2019, the charity provides the disadvantaged women with care, information and support to women and birthing people who experience disadvantages, which could mean they face poor birth outcomes and give birth alone. The organisation's impact gained the judges' admiration, especially their commitment to having on-call supporters from 37 weeks ready to aid women through labour. Trained birth companions provide one-to-one support from the third trimester of pregnancy, attending births and ensuring a woman's voice is rightfully considered in decisions. Supported by 70 volunteers, the charity offers a range of other emotional and practical support services, from pregnancy to early parenthood, as well as infant feeding and domestic tasks. And that article is unattributed. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 5th of March, from the news section, Council urged to reconsider drastic cuts to teaching jobs. Report by Nicole Mitchell. Glasgow City Council has been urged to reconsider drastic cuts to teaching jobs over the next 3 years. The council could cut 172 teaching posts across primary and secondary schools in an effort to save £27.8 million amid a budget shortfall. However, TES Scotland, a magazine for teachers and education professionals, has reported the council is considering cutting a total of 450 teaching jobs by 2027. Now, a petition has been launched asking the council to reconsider the cuts and find alternative solutions that do not compromise our children's future. The petition, at change.org from Michael Sheriff, says, "This decision threatens to significantly impact the quality of education for all children in Glasgow, potentially leading to larger class sizes, reduced support for pupils and an increase in exclusions." he is calling on the council to re-evaluate the proposed cuts to education, explore alternative budgeting solutions and engage in transparent and inclusive dialogue with parents, teachers and unions. So far, more than 260 people have signed the petition since it was started on Tuesday, February 27th. A council spokesperson said consultation has begun with relevant trade unions and an oversight group will engage with employees. They said, officers have begun consultation with the relevant trade unions following the council budget published last month. A cross-party political oversight group has been established and will continue to engage with employees. Officers are looking at several education service reform options as part of a budget that requires almost £108 million worth of savings from council services over the next 3 years, not including social care. For many years, the city government has protected education spending relative to other services in the budget process. However, with the education budget now amounting to more than half of the service expenditure directed by the council, that is significantly more challenging when substantial savings are still required. A Scottish Government spokesperson said, "The Scottish Government is determined to close the poverty-related attainment gap, and ministers are clear that this will not be achieved by councils employing fewer teachers in our schools. To that end, we are providing local authorities with £145.5 million in next year's budget to protect teacher numbers. The Scottish budget for next year includes record funding for local authorities of over £14 billion, and Scotland's education and skills budget has grown to over £4.8 billion. Councils have statutory obligations in respect of education and have a shared commitment with the Scottish Government to deliver the best outcomes for people and communities under the Verity House Agreement." And that article was by Nicole Mitchell. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 5th of March. From the news section. Man stabbed near school in East Kilbride. Report by Kirsty Feerick. A man has been attacked in broad daylight, prompting a 999 response in East Kilbride. Police say they were called to High Common Road area of East Kilbride following reports of an incident at around 12:55 p.m. An ambulance has been pictured at the scene, and no details have been provided on the status of the man who was attacked. Our reporter has been told locally that the man was stabbed. It is understood that the victim had been arguing with others at a nearby Tesco supermarket and had ran away. It is claimed his attackers caught up with him and then struck near the school. This has not been confirmed by the force. The disturbance took place near Calderglen High School, but it is understood that the school had no link to the incident. The force confirmed that inquiries into the incident are ongoing. A Police Scotland spokesperson said, around 12:55 p.m. on Tuesday, March the 5th, 2024, police were called to the High Common Road area of East Kilbride following the reported assault of a man. Inquiries into the circumstances are ongoing. A spokesperson for South Lanarkshire Council said, "We have been made aware of an incident some distance away from the school. No pupils were involved. The Scottish Ambulance Service has been contacted for comment." And that report was by Kirsty Feerick. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 5th of March, from the news section. Mum invited to Holyrood to help shape new law. This article is an exclusive by Amanda Keenan. A grieving mum is heading back to Holyrood to share her recommendations for new legislation that will govern how Police Scotland operates. Stephanie Bonner has faced a near 5-year fight for change following the unexplained death of her son Rhys. The brave Balarnock mother and community activist Alexa O'Kane has now provided written evidence to the Scottish Government's Criminal Justice Committee, outlining several key factors they feel could have been handled differently after the teenager's body was found in the marshland between Easterhouse and Garthlock Village in August 2019. The document will now be considered by the panel's members as part of its remit to shape the Police, Ethics, Conduct and Scrutiny Scotland Bill. The Glasgow Times has viewed the submission, which details the anguish Stephanie, 39, has endured since her son's half-naked body was discovered. Stephanie and Alex will share their views at a meeting at the Scottish Parliament next month before the bill becomes law. It aims to ensure there are robust, clear and transparent mechanisms in place for investigating complaints, allegations of misconduct or other issues relating to the conduct of Scotland's police officers. The legislation intends to embed good practice and underline the importance of maintaining the high standards expected of the force. Speaking exclusively to the Glasgow Times, Stephanie said, "This is a huge step forward. I'll never stop fighting for justice for my boy. I welcome the opportunity to help shape any new legislation that will make the police more accountable. There needs to be change in how unexplained deaths are investigated and how families are treated. I'm pleased that this is finally set to happen. I don't want another family to go through the pain that we've endured. I've only ever wanted answers about my son's death, and I still don't have them to this day. I think about Rhys all the time. It breaks my heart that he's not here with me. He had everything to live for, and was such a kind, caring and brilliant boy. I know he would be so proud of what we've achieved. I've never been told the exact spot his body was found, so I still don't know where to place flowers or visit to feel close to him. That's an unbearable pain for any mother to carry." Stephanie's evidence is supporting several sections of the bill. These include introducing a requirement for Police Scotland to respond to recommendations in complaint handling reviews and provide details on what they have done or propose to do in response to these recommendations within a timescale set out by the Police Investigations and Review Committee, PIRC. The changes will also allow PIRC to take over a complaint in certain circumstances rather than simply reviewing how it has been handled. It will also give the watchdog direct access to Police Scotland's electronic database to view records and files. We previously told how Stephanie gave evidence to the Citizens' Participation and Public Petitions Committee last year after a petition was raised by her and Alex calling for improvements in how unexplained deaths are dealt with. Alex, who has been instrumental in spearheading Stephanie's campaign, added, "This humble lady wanted to help others after her own terrible loss. She wanted to help reform the standards expected of Police Scotland, and now she's an integral part of that ongoing process." Police Scotland claims Rhys's death was fully investigated and declared it's not suspicious. In December 2022, PIRC upheld 4 complaints submitted by the family, including one that officers had provided the family with incorrect coordinates of where Rhys's body was discovered. It was also found that Police Scotland failed to facilitate a state visit for the family's representative and didn't address contradictions and anomalies surrounding Rhys's death. A Criminal Justice Committee spokesperson said, "A written submission on the Police, Ethics, Conduct and Scrutiny Scotland Bill will now be considered as part of the committee's scrutiny of the bill." And that article was an exclusive by Amanda Keenan.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at View and Review and to tell your friends about our service.